All right, good evening, everyone. It is now 6:30. I mean, no, 4:30. Wrong meeting, 4:30. And we are going to kick off the Joint Council and Bastrop Economic Development Corporation meeting. Call to order for City Council, please. Do I need to say anything? Oh, okay. All right. And then call to order for the Bastrop Economic Development Corporation.
I call the BEDC board meeting to order at 4:31.
All right. Thank you, sir. On item 1C, consider an act on the resolution number R-2025-186, naming officers to the Bastrop Economic Development Corporation, Chair, Vice Chair, and Secretary. Madam City Manager.
So Chair, Vice Chair, and Secretary make up the executive team of the BEDC. Council cannot serve as that. So right now you have two members. So you're looking at the Chair and Vice Chair. They may arm wrestle each other for the position. And then once you finish your appointments, then we'll appoint a Secretary.
Okay, thank you. Y'all want to do it like over the top? Y'all know that movie with Sylvester Stallone?
So you need a motion. Are
Yes,
you motioning for Mr. Blake to be chair? And so that leaves Mr. McCool to be
The Vice Chair.
So moved. Not a whole lot of, yeah, there's, okay, great.
Right,
So
we're good.
at the
Okay.
end of the meeting, Mr. Blake will then close the meeting. Yeah. No, because it's their meeting.
No, it's their,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. So, okay, so so John's a member, Cynthia's a member, Ishmael's a member.
Yes.
Okay. So raise your hands if you agree with Mr. Blake being appointed as chair. Mr. McCool, that's a unanimous vote. Okay, raise your hand for Mr. McCool to be vice chair. It's a unanimous vote. Recorded. Okay, housekeeping out of the way.
All right. It's on
All right.
Mr. Blake now, right? I'm going to continue to.
No, it's yours.
It's still, okay. All right, we're on to agenda item 2, presentation, a workshop presentation from the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. You received, there was a packet in the council packet that's been updated. Those documents are in front of you. I also emailed you important sections of the statute that create the Economic Development Corporation and other important documents that we're going to reference as we walk through this. Really, we're at a turning point with the EDC, and what I and staff are looking for is specific direction. When we had the council retreat, there was a variety of directions. When the BEDC had its meeting, there was a variety of directions. And so I think what I need is a coalescence of that so that we march toward the appropriate goal that's within the parameters of what we can do as a BEDC, and or even considering whether the BEDC will continue being an entity. All right, so let's just get right down to the relationship between the BEDC and the city. It is a parent-child relationship. I know everybody hates for me to say that, but the EDC can't necessarily exist without the city. And for some of its major decisions, the BEDC needs city approval. It has some independent authority that the board has vested in it in its bylaws and by statute, but it's not ultimate autonomy. Now, BEDCs are able to do special things that cities cannot do. And for us in Bastrop, our residents have said those lead to some transparency concerns. And the first one is cities aren't allowed to grant money, et cetera, to a private entity for a for-profit business. The EDC can, and we see it all the time in the agreements that we reach out through. We've provided $1 million, for example, to Accutronic in exchange for the construction of their property. And there's also some bid ceilings on when the EDC can or can't. I don't like to focus on those a lot because my recommendation to y'all is never to do that. Always be as transparent as possible. There are negotiations that can happen in the back at EDC that we don't necessarily happen at the city level. And so I gave you a quote. It says, the EDC operates as the city's economic arm, giving flexibility to invest in business recruitment, infrastructure, and quality of life projects that cities cannot directly fund under constitutional limits. The EDC's separate legal structure allows it to offer incentives, own and develop property, and conduct confidential negotiations while remaining accountable to the city council. That's important because the statute is written specifically to allow members of council to serve on boards. This board had not had a member of council prior to me coming on board, and the boards were often at odds with direction from the city. And so over the last couple of years, we've attempted to make sure everybody's on one page, but here we are with some new folks on the council, relatively new folks on the board, and we need to figure out what our strategic plan is here moving forward. And so at the city council retreat, and here's the compare and contrast, at the city council retreat, you guys said you wanted to shift more toward community-centered development. You wanted economic growth to benefit the residents, and you wanted the business incentives to show a very strong ROI for the community. That's what you guys were very clear about. The BEDC's strategic focus was to market and maximize the business park, complete existing plans, Accutronic, Coltson, which is the Thorthea factory, make sure we market the small business loan, continue to aggressively seek companies to locate here, supply chains, and we had a lot of conversation about the bylaws and the architectural requirements in the park. Some of these can fit that community benefit, i.e. maximizing the small business loan. That can absolutely have a community benefit. Completing existing business plans. Yeah. Hi. Completing existing business plans, which makes Accutronic and Coltson so important because they're able to have jobs that would then in turn benefit the community. So in some instances, we're not super far apart. I think it's how we do that moving forward. And so from a community investment standpoint, the BEDC as a Type B board is able to fund amateur sports. And so what you see on the screen is everything we've heard from the council, and that is Mayfest Park arena improvements. It is a rodeo, it's considered amateur sport. An Olympic-sized indoor pool for swimming that could also fit the needs of the residents when it's not being used in competition. A par 3 golf course can also be funded from here. Other suggestions that are on the table, a downtown parking garage. How can the Type B board assist with affordable housing? How can the board assist with higher education partnerships? What do we do there to bring training, et cetera, into the town that benefits our students? Some of these have hook and loop, Velcro type. Like, you can do a higher education, you can pay for training, but there's got to be a company that will take those people that have trained and give them jobs. So it's not like we can just throw something to ACC or anybody else for that matter. So that's why I've labeled that partnership. And then infrastructure, and an example of that is the boring tunnels that we've talked about across 95. But infrastructure really could be any one of those projects that serves a greater benefit. Blakey is a portion funded by the EDC, so that's an example of infrastructure. Alternatively, the sales tax can also become a public safety tax, and that is via a crime control and prevention district, CCPD. And so what that does is redirect funds that help support crime, not necessarily the police department, but they're called crime prevention programs. So, oh my goodness, I had a whole bunch of stuff on crime control districts. I think I have the wrong slides up. So key consideration, right? You guys have? Yes. Colin, let me Yeah, it's updated. Yeah. Yeah, drop it in. Teams right quick, please. So the crime control and prevention tax, as I bring that up, that's under Chapter 363. And essentially what that is we put it to the voters. We let the voters decide, do they want to continue an economic development tax or do they want to create a crime control and prevention tax? And essentially, the way that the mechanics to that would work is the council would approve an ordinance to propose the district, and then we go through that voting process. We schedule it on the November ballot. It takes a majority vote. We seat a 2-year temporary board. You know, those things can last up to 20 years, depending on how the statute is written. And that's not without its parameters, right? The crime control district has limitations on expenditures, but it does include police and law enforcement related programs. It includes community related crime prevention strategies. So if we wanted to invest in more flock cameras around, for example. It also deals with specific treatment and prevention programs more toward drug and mental health, is what the statute is clear. And it can also help with court and prosecution services. All of these related programs and strategies are currently funded by the general fund. And so creating a crime control and prevention would assist the police department, and it would also assist in creating relief in the general fund. So, but we have some key considerations that we have to think about. We have $4 million in outstanding BEDC obligations, and that number it's between 4 and 5 million. That is debt that is owed by the EDC, and then also obligations to Accutronics on land rebates and infrastructure. Any land that the BEDC owns would still have to be used in the furtherance of economic development principles. It's not like all of a sudden we inherit, you know, so many acres of land and we can go do whatever we're going to do with it. Some thoughts that have been floating around: a contribution to a parking garage, an arena, infrastructure, higher ed. Also have to consider the transition cost. We do have some staff members who would remain, and then the crime control district could fund potentially 5 to 6 officers. So I did have an opinion of probable cost come through today for the arena. That is a $10.2 million project. We're working on probable costs for a parking garage. That project is going to be in the neighborhood of 16 to 20 million, but that could be funded by a TERS in the downtown tax increment reinvestment zone, so there would not be a tax impact. Grant contributions for the boring tunnel. And so these are all of the things that have been sort of floated around, but they have hooks to them. It's not just something we can just go run out afterwards and do. We've got to make some significant progress toward. And so that is short and sweet presentation. I do want to get your thoughts. I want to understand where the council and the board want to go collectively so that we can then, as staff, begin to create a more viable roadmap that's going to last us. I have 2 competing principles. We have the residents who say no more development. There's already enough here. Don't incentivize anymore. And then I have but we want our kids to be able to do something. There are still things that we need. And then the thought that EDC can't really do anything without the city anyway. So if there's some type of incentive the EDC wants to put forward, the council still needs to approve that. And the council can still operate without an EDC. It's just, where is the hit going to come from and how big is that hit going to be? In other words, if we offer a reimbursement of sales tax, for example, how much of that, what percentage of that, what are we giving up, right? What's that opportunity cost of that revenue that we're giving up, and should we be receiving equal to or more on the back end? So happy to have a conversation now.
Sylvia, I have just a question on the parking garage. The lower level would be for retail?
Correct. We have some preliminary renderings that create about 15,000 square feet of retail and restaurant space. And at about $2.50, that creates about $500,000 of revenue that pays for about $6 million to $7 million
Okay.
worth of the debt.
That was
So-
my question. Thank you.
Yes, and then the other alternatives for that is the charging stations in the downtown. Those charging stations create generous revenue for BP&L, who could then contribute. And the TERS, depending on what the footprint of that TERS could be, and the TERS is a tax increment reinvestment zone. The base tax is set, any increases above that go toward a particular project, public improvements in that area that we determine. There is enough in a limited footprint that could pay for the parking garage with no impact to the property tax rate.
Thank you.
So, what does the affordable housing look like?
So we're a type B, so generally it should be tied to an industry that we're bringing that has a specific need. So if we're bringing, like Colson, for example, if Colson's bringing 60 workers and they have an average median value of blank, we should be able to offer housing that fits into that affordable blank. And how we do that is varied, whether we do that through a public-private partnership, whether we do that through the contribution of land, whether we do that. I mean, there's a wide variety of ways for us to accomplish that.
Okay, thank you.
It's never been used in this town for affordable housing.
Right, yeah, no, so I just, being that it's never been used, and I know we floated that idea in talks around, for those who are listening, and then even here, just kind of wondering, how we would go about making that possible or looking at that option.
For me, the discussion is about efficiency. I heard about the idea to transition the EDC into a road maintenance tax at TML my very first year. And I brought that, and at the time we were struggling with the EDC, the whole parent-child relationship. It was a petulant teenager phase. And I just kept saying, fix the roads every time the topic of the EDC would come up until council took it seriously, and then we put it before the voters, and we're using it to fix roads. Once upon a time, Bastrop created the EDC and set this tax up because we were a sleepy little town and we're trying to attract businesses here, and for the good of our community, for very good reasons. And we did that by offering free land to people if they would come here, set up business for a year, and then we would give them the price of their land back. I've talked to people about it, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, about, yeah, come to Bastrop, we'll give you land for free, that kind of thing. But things have changed. We're no longer a sleepy little town. We're a destination for businesses. We're no longer having to give away the free land because it's just not necessary anymore. And it's because several of the entire world's largest businesses have moved within tens of miles of our city, the likes of Samsung, the Elon Musk companies. And that's driving new development for us. And it's, an interesting time in Bastrop because of it. The EDC has always kind of been at least as far back as I've been paying attention, has been kind of this challenging parent-child thing going on. And then it also was an entity that basically just built up a large bank account and, wasn't taking on and doing strategic things until council sort of said, go pay for this thing for us. It was just weird. And so kind of in recognition of that strangeness, as I said, a couple of us that were on council at the time, we put it before the voters, and the voters approved the change to the road maintenance. As part of that process, we were putting $800,000 previously into road maintenance in the last two budgets prior to that. When we put the $3.3 million from this tax into road maintenance, we were more or less, we relieved that 800,000, and that went back into the general fund for other expenses. And so, honestly, I do think that it's time for us to ask the voters to transfer over the remainder of the EDC tax for some other tax form that would relieve general fund expenses in the same way. Crime control and prevention is a possibility. I don't know if there might be another type in addition that we should be considering as a possibility. We already know about the road maintenance one. But even with that one, the intent would not be to take that, let's just say it's 1.1 million, and I don't know the exact number now, but that's what we called it, 2 years ago. You would take that, and then you would add that to the budgets, if it could be courts and police department, maybe fire department, however this all fits in the rules. And then for every amount that you raised, you would then lower their general fund draw by the same amount, so you'd be a net neutral. You would probably create a Office of Economic Development or Department of Economic Development within the city. Let our city manager recommend, how many people to staff that and what would be needed there. But I think you said that those two individuals would cost a total of 400,000. That's like the fully loaded cost, right?
That's operational, that's the whole shebang.
Yeah, I get it. So then that would mean if you're pulling, if you're using 1.1 as your back of the envelope number, you would continue with that $400,000 cost or expense in the general fund, and then that would free up $700,000 that then, and I don't even know that we need to decide how to spend it right now, and the reason why is because you have to go through an election, you have to go through all these things. It's in a whole nother budgetary year for us, but what it would do is free up that $700,000 to do other things, including economic development, because cities are allowed to do economic development. Can add additional officers if we chose to use it that way, parks maintenance, just whatever. It's the conversation that councils have in terms of how to spend money, but it would increase our general fund ability to do that on the order of about 20% or so. Regarding the reserves that the EDC has of about $10 million, all of the money that was collected under the heading of that EDC tax can only be spent, even if the EDC were to completely go away, even the city could only spend it in something that was legal when that tax was collected. And so the ideas that Sylvia presented in terms of there's debt to pay off. I'm one that pays off his mortgage as soon as humanly possible, so I'd be like, let's just pay off the $4 million so it's gone. I think I've heard in the past that we're required to have an EDC, a board, as long as we have debt. And so by just paying the debt off, then we could, assuming this tax were to transition by the taxpayers. And by that I mean, if the voters transition the tax, we could use it in the way that we've described, but the EDC would continue to exist without any new revenue coming in until the debt was paid off. And so anyway, if you paid off the debt, you would have $6 million remaining, and then we could freely discuss economic development projects to divide that $6 million into and then execute. And back to the very first thing I said, I just see this as about efficiency. It makes that money available to the decision makers in our city to do the things that need to be done.
On that note, I need to ask just a question, because this kind of reminds me a little bit, not the same, totally different pot of money, but what we did with Discover Bastrop, because we're structuring it in-house. That being said, if it was structured like that, would we have a board like Discover Bastrop does for the economic department, or we wouldn't have to because council is going to be the one anyway? So, thank you.
Council is the board. And so I want to share a little bit about the types of tools the EDC has used, and to talk about efficiencies. Well, so really the only tool the EDC has used is land in lieu of. So if you buy this piece of land for $1 million and you meet your performance metrics at the end and you get your C of O, we'll give you your $1 million back. that grew a little bit. If you do this and this, we'll give you this back. Accutronic, for example, if you meet your performance measures, we'll give you your $1 million for your property back. And if you get your C of O by blank date, we'll also reimburse you $1 million of your site development cost. And that's where I think some of the negativity in the community runs rampant, because these are larger cities. What we have, or larger companies, what we do have, and we talked about this earlier at staff, is the requests for the small business community. Like, what's in it for us? What are you doing for us? There had been some facade grants at one point in time. Those have gone away, and that was, largely some of the conversation of, we keep doing it for the same people, and they're using the EDC pot as a maintenance fund, and so no real parameters over that. We have the Small Business Revolving Loan Fund, which is funded by Roscoe Bank and has a match by the EDC that Roscoe helps administer. But there's some credit worthiness behind it, and there's some business plan, and so it's been difficult to get that program up and running. Our first loan that we did, low interest loan, they defaulted. It was Bearded Baker, and so they're no longer in business. So it's those kinds of risks. The EDC was trying to take that on its own, us running a credit report, us running the Dun & Bradstreet, and that's not our bailiwick. We don't do those things well as a public organization. That's better left to the banks and those folks. But for me to tell you, we made an investment into affordable housing. We did do the building down on Main Street. It was sort of a break even for the art building, but super projects that the residents can point out. This is an EDC project. Not a whole lot of. They have done things. They've just been sort of in the background. And so by and large, some of what we've been trying to overcome in the EDC is that of optics. Like, why do you even exist and what are you doing? And they know the history. They know what we did. They know what companies we incentivized. They know what companies didn't make it. And so there's a little bit of animosity out there. The other thing to remember is of the economic development chapter, 380 for cities is like, Stan, a page and a half in the entire local government code. It's very, very, very broad. So cities have very broad authority already. If a development, for example, were to come in and pitch that they wanted to do a public improvement district and they wanted to layer that on with the tax increment reinvestment zone that turned into a tax increment financing district, those are all city tools. EDC could participate, but those are all city tools. EDC could bring it forward, staff could bring it forward and say, we think this is the best financing mechanism and this is the ROA, but it can't happen without the city. And so, rightfully so, because that's how the statute is written, the EDC has been used as a, slush fund to some extent. City was taking a lot of it for streets, was taking a lot of it for other projects. And so when we met as a council and I said, you'll never borrow your way out of a street maintenance program. There's not enough money in the world for the general fund to sustain borrowing to repair things, ever. Just put it to the voters agreed. The city was skimming, I don't want to say skimming, but I just said skimming. The city was skimming from the EDC for other street projects. And so the voter tax really just legitimized what was already happening in the background. Lots of economic tools in the toolbox already for cities and counties. We've not really explored our city-county partnership either, because Chapter 381 is counties.
And also, Sylvia, with the schools too, right? Because of the workforce and everything that way, there's a huge opportunity for relationships with the schools, as we saw at the State of the School.
I don't think it's time for the transition to a separate district yet. District, is that the word? I'm reading district. You know what I mean? District. It's like having that buffer zone. Like, we've done the business incentivizing, the land in lieu of. There's been a tremendous focus of everyone in our community back on the community. It's like, I would really like to explore the community focus before transitioning, and maybe in a few years to a different district. But I think that, for me, it seems like the people are loud and clear that they would like the focus right now. And so I think it would be the wisest thing to go down that path before we transition and not jump straight to a transition to a different kind of district.
So you don't have enough to do both, because the budget is, 1.1, 1.2 million. And so there would not be enough to, for example, go borrow. The EDC couldn't pay for any one of these projects
So
per
the
se.
district is only if there's a fund balance.
No. So
It's only possible if there's a
yeah,
balance
so
in there.
the
It's not for
EDC
ongoing.
The only way the EDC stays a viable office is we begin to generate those sales tax much quicker, and we get back up to the point where our revenues are $4, $5, $6 million. Right now, at a revenue of 1.1, there's not a whole lot that the EDC can do. It's using fund balance to do any incentive projects or anything like that. There's not really a whole lot it can do. So having that optic, if assuming we have some of these projects come on board, let's say an affordable housing development comes in and they want the EDC to pay for $7 million worth of infrastructure. That's one of two things. That's going to be fund balance, or that's going to be the EDC taking out a loan. There's not enough revenue for the EDC to fund it, is what I'm saying. So we're at a point where you're going to have to begin to make a decision on how you're going to move forward. My question to you guys is, there is a small amount in fund balance. And so if we're going to begin to move forward to more community-centric things before we get to a crime control and prevention tax at some point down the road, or, we say, okay, no more streets, let the voters decide to put the street tax back as an EDC tax. That's the other, atomic bomb. My point is there's not enough revenue coming in to sustain any one of these type of projects for a long period of time, or even at all in some instances. And I'll tell you, when I first came on, the board was looking, they'd hired an engineering firm and they were doing some utility layouts, et cetera, et cetera. That, we paid the engineer more than $1 million, and that opinion of probable cost was over $16 million. So really taking a look at the revenues the EDC was receiving, the debt it was going to have to go borrow, it was going to find itself in the same position, because I think we missed our hot spot of when things were affordable to build in the park. We're looking at alternative measures now, like what can the city put in, how can the water department, how can we do it, quote unquote, on the cheap that at least makes the sites shovel ready. At least we have a plan moving forward. I don't have a viable plan today.
I see the most viable way to do the community projects is in the discussion of how to spend the $6 million after paying off the debt. That's where that value would come from.
So, right.
And so you'd either do it with an EDC continuing to exist, and then it would just be broke, or you would remove the EDC, add some more money to the general fund of about $700,000 a year right now, that could be spent on any number of things chosen by the council in that year, and then the $6 million could go towards any projects that were deemed appropriate by the body.
And that gets us out of debt in that aspect, and then we still may not be able to get everything that we want, but we can get some things accomplished, and definitely focus on the community while we're trying to do it.
So the debt is not callable just yet, so we've got to payable in full about it.
Okay.
And so we need to find out what that is.
Yeah,
There-
work through that
Yeah,
detail.
let's see what that is.
And honestly, if you were to say, well, goodness, if we pay the debt off over, 5 years or 10 years, and we do this in this particular way, it'll save us $700,000 or $1.2 million because of stuff. Well, okay, I'm not going to be a fool about it, but,
Yep.
I'm one to try to get out of debt as soon as
Yep.
possible, so.
And to some of what Mayor Pro Tem Kirkland is saying, or at least my perspective, is that at one point in time, yeah, we were a pick-me city, and we've talked about that before, throughout just individuals, but just from what I've been observing, even though we have the population of a city that can be heavily reliant on an EDC, we have found ourselves in a position to where we can do some things on our own. And so definitely, I can see us moving away from this in the future. I don't know when. And to me, that says it's a good thing about our city that we're being a little bit more self-sustaining. And, but yeah, so let's look at those options, y'all. Let's see what we can do and come up with a solid game plan.
One thing that, just to point out, and certainly not trying to boast, but I guess I kind of am, because we are in a pretty nice spot right now in Bastrop. We're in a whole different place than, like Mayor Pro Tem said. Sadly, Smithville isn't, so I can compare cities, and they are in a place where we were many years ago that needed this. So things do transition and change in life, period. We never stay static. We always have to change with whatever the time is. However, the other point I want us to think about, and Mayor Pro Tem brought this up, by having the money go toward police, fire, however, that takes a huge load off the general fund that enables us to do other things with that. So it's not just the police, everything taken care of. That frees up our general fund for a lot more things to happen. So it's like a twofold bonus.
I've got many questions, and we probably don't have time to obviously get them all answered tonight. But,
Sure we do. Can you come in?
Yeah, we may.
well, looking at the drivers and the time frames to make this change, but are we changing the name of the entity and how it operates just so we can have access to short-term money? What happens when that money gets spent? And when $4 million of debt, an extra 6 to 7 million is left over. As you guys are well aware, looking at the real opinion of probable cost, that $6 million will go away quickly. What do we do at that point? Assuming we have the same revenue, my ultimate question would be, and not necessarily in defense of BEDC, it's just for the community as a general to think about, is BEDC operating at a loss? Are we costing the community anything? Or is it a combination of optics and the ability to use the money under EDC for specific things, not necessarily what we want to do? And I agree, if we have X amount of money under BEDC, but it can only be used for certain things, but the public wants other things, then we need to find a way to fix that. You're right. I'm just wondering if we're going to eliminate something that was a driver of income, could be, or we just swapping it out, one thing for another. And that's just an open question. I don't say I have the answers. Certainly not being defensive here.
So it is a swap of revenue type.
Okay.
So you can consider it, instead of interest earned revenue, it's actual wages. It's just a different revenue type. In terms of, okay, we spend the 6 million, what happens? Well, nothing dramatic happens because the tools are still available to the city. And so I'll give you an example. There is a development, hotel convention center that wants to come in. And it needs to do, let's say, $12 million worth of infrastructure. That's just a number I pulled out. That's not, nobody quote me on that number. The way things happened before is the EDC would fund some million or some amount thereof. You don't have to do that under the tools that we have. We can create a public improvement district where the developer goes and borrows that money on the city's faith and good credit, and then assesses those properties, and that creation, that economic engine has fed itself. And that $12 million comes to fruition via special assessments that, let's face it, the developer is benefiting from. City as a whole benefits from it, from the property tax and the sales tax that are being created. It's a driver of its own driver. I mean, pick your golf club, right? We can still hit the ball. Just, I'm scraping for analogy, yeah.
Because I understand that the same amount of funds hopefully would be coming in, but we can use the funds under a different structure differently than we can under an EDC. There's only certain things we can do.
Sure.
So I was just clarifying that.
Chris?
That's kind
I mean, we serve at the pleasure of the mayor and the council, but I would say this, I joined the board because I wanted to keep a focus on bringing businesses, and though I hear big ones are coming, don't forget about the little guys. Every time I hear about a new development, everyone's like, what about the small business owners? And though this board may not have been as transparent or done business in a different way, it doesn't mean we can't focus toward the local people who want to be a part of these developments and are overshadowed by the big ones coming in. They're easy to get. They're coming to us.
Right.
So there's a lot of voices of the small ones out there like, I need help. And though we've only helped a few and it didn't turn out, I don't know, when I'm in the community and talk about it, people are shocked that there is somebody who can help them. I would like to start a business. I didn't know someone could help them. So, I told them you can't. Just don't talk to us about it. So if you're going to get River Board, the council needs to communicate, we're still going to set money aside for the local businesses who want to start.
Right. No, I agree with you. And I don't, just my thoughts are, it's not something that we're trying to do overnight. We're looking at options, just definitely looking in a different direction of where we're going to use the funds. Because there are some areas that have been overlooked, is what's been put in the slideshow, and as well as the small businesses. This is Bastrop, we're about that. And so don't want to lose that at all, and want to be able to give that opportunity. So these are definitely things to consider as we move forward. The biggest thing is just that we're going to do something good for the people. However we're going to do it, right? More focused on the internals of Bastrop, because again, Bastrop is doing, to me, quite well as far as recruiting those larger businesses here, and with that comes things that we need to do for the smaller folks.
Just one thing too that I want to discuss or just address, because I don't want anyone to feel like people are getting cut, because I want to make sure that the people right now that are with the BEDC will still have a place, because I don't, Dory, especially you and Angela, I'm talking to you right now because you're such a huge asset to the city. So I just wanted to voice that to make sure that we were all on the same page with that.
Only thing you lose is an executive director.
Yeah.
If we were to move as fast as humanly possible, we probably would still need to have a board for 2 years. Something in that ballpark.
Yeah, and I don't think it would happen like within the next couple of years. It'd be some.
Well, but I mean,
Well,
like,
so-
that's what I'm saying,
Well-
is that even if you put it on the November ballot a
Right.
year from next month, then and assuming the voters approved it, then you would still be looking at the time to pay off debt, and
Right.
that
yeah.
transition process would take a little while.
Yeah, I would say November, that's a year, probably, I would probably say 18 months,
Mhm.
18 to 24 months to
Yeah.
settle out.
And you said November, is it because November's required, or could we do it in May?
I believe November's required, that's a Stan question.
Okay.
Councilmember Plunkett.
Yeah, my history on the EDC goes back 8 or 9 years, and I want to make sure that at least it's said that, there have been a number of things that have been extremely beneficial to the city that the BEDC helped to bring. Burleson Crossing is one of them. That was paid for, the incentive part of that was paid for with EDC dollars. Buc-ee's, another big one and those are two of our biggest sales tax drivers that we have right now, and two of the things that are allowing us to do, what we do with our budget today. It's easy to forget, or when it's not right there in front of you, it's easy to say, well, what are they doing? What are they, what have they ever done? It's easy to forget, the things that, are in our back pocket that we can take for granted. So I don't want that to be lost. And I know there's a lot of other things. And I know for the small businesses, when COVID came around, EDC was the first one up with grants. And the first money that got into the pockets of small business locally, and it was lightning fast for government. And so I know I was very appreciative of that, and I know, many others were as well. For me, this is about, to John's point, efficiency. There is, I want to make sure that, that we make a sober decision here that is fully worked out. One of the things that we have to do in business is be dispassionate, right? And so, let's put the numbers on the table, see where they are, and then look at the pros and cons of how to spend that money. And the other thing that we need to deal with is the other assets of the corporation, which is almost entirely land, I would imagine, right? So we got about 90 acres or so? 80? Okay. And so that has to be dealt with. Do we have an idea of how we would do that? Because I think we would need the board to make those decisions as well, so.
The land can still only be used for the furtherance of economic development.
So could it, we've been trying to sell it for about 30 years now, I think. So could you even just put it on the open market? Or, what is it that, how would that be, how could you even dispose of it? Or,
So, yeah, we would engage a real estate firm and make sure that the offer meets our performance standards and just the same way we do business today.
And I agree with you on that too. Like I guess in a roundabout way, what I was trying to get at or implying is that we do need to look at the options. We need to look at the small business. We need to look at what it's going to do for the community. I know talking with Dory that there are a lot of untapped grants that we can look at as EDC to really help out the community. So I definitely don't want to go about and not look at the options that we have to really maximize as best as we can for the people. And go about it in that way. But I do think at some point in time, and that's just me having confidence in our city, not taken away from the EDC, but I just think at some point in time we'll be at that point to where, we'll be able to be self-sustaining and be able to help out.
I would like to clarify my comments earlier. I'm all about efficiency too, and certainly 100% about the benefit of the community. And I agree, if we've got different tools in the toolboxes, and if times have changed, whether it's how we do business or the companies we were trying to attract or what have you, if it's time to change the toolbox, yes, let's definitely do that. I was just worried about if there were perceptions of time, how fast we can do this, or are we trying to do one thing really quick, and in the end, because we still need to perform the same function, whether it's under an EDC or if the EDC rules hamstring us and keep us as a community from moving forward at the pace we want to, then yeah, we need to make some changes, because I don't really care what it's called, EDC or what have you. As long as
Right.
we can put the right tools in the toolbox, we're not working on old Edsels anymore. We're working on cars with computers. We got to change the tool in the toolbox. So I just wanted to clarify to make sure that
Yeah, no, I
I'm
appreciate
certainly
it.
not against it. I don't have enough information one way or the other to say whether I would be, but I'm all about efficiency also. Let's make it happen the way it works for the community.
The question, Mayor and Sylvia and everybody, this is just a question. It's not, I'm not advocating one way or the other, But I do know one of the roles of that is exclusive to the EDC is land acquisition. So therefore, and I'm not saying we need to buy any more land, or we need to, but that would be taken away, correct?
So the EDC can hold land for blank purpose. The city's land purchases have to be for municipal purposes. And so land acquisition for a parking garage, for example, that would serve a municipal purpose. Both EDC and the city could do that.
Okay, thank you.
The election date can be May. It can be a May election.
Are there time limits on that?
On holding the land?
No,
Yeah.
indefinite.
Okay.
So that would be something also in discussion, is really coming up with a solid game plan on what we want to see in these different properties around town to determine, right? If we're going to choose to continue to want to maybe acquire land later on.
Well, I did not have land acquisition by itself up there because y'all already had 7 things y'all have talked to me about. I'd have to add an 8th bullet.
No, I mean,
Well, I mean, you know, if we, you know, it's a good strategic plan
yeah.
to acquire some land.
And I think it could play in, I think it could all work together, like not as a separate thing, but like you say, the parking garage, affordable housing, whatever, I think that ties in with the land acquisition, right? Like, I think that we're saying the same thing.
Yes.
The city is not required to divest itself of the EDC land were it to take possession of it, though, right?
No.
Okay. So it can keep holding it and continue to use it for economic development. There was a different time when that land was acquired, and it was acquired at whatever price it was, substantially less expensive than what land is today. At the tax rate that the EDC receives, on a yearly basis, we might be able to go and buy a couple of single-digit acres. It's just a completely different equation now. In terms of like acquiring new land, you couldn't acquire enough new land in 1 year to even bring in one new business. The businesses that are coming now know that land acquisition is going to be part of their expenses. And by having a competent development staff that is facilitating the process and not pushing people through, impossible things like our city has done historically, that's how you address that. And we've done that part materially.
And I think to the point that an EDC is only as good as the relationship with development services. I will tell you time and time again, from a town of almost 350,000, the EDC regional managers would come and say, oh, we've got this great company. I'm going to use Colson as an example. We got Colson. We picked this spot over here at Leopard and 37, and it's great, and it's 4 acres, and they need 3.5. They got an extra half acre, great. And I, as a city at Development Services, would say, it's not zoned properly. There's not enough water. They don't have any sewer. That's a drainage hole. And so the city acted as a hindrance, not acted, but the appearance was that the city was a hindrance. And when I came here, that was some of the same fights. We had the EDC and the city, an assistant city manager, and within Development Services, it was always ahead. It was, well, we've shown them this piece of property and we think this can work, or we told them that we would do this and we're going to put in a lift station and we're going to do all this other stuff. And then the city would say, well, you don't even have a wastewater line and it needs more than a lift station, or that's not even BPL territory, that's blue, so it was a constant. And the people that got caught in that crossfire were the companies. And so we lost many a deal in that format. I mean, Accutronics was almost not a thing. For those very kinds of conversations. Now, Dory and Angela are at the development meetings. They know what's coming. They can help facilitate some of that. And so that engine is, those 2 pistons in that engine specifically must be in sync. Otherwise, you're going to just hit each other over the head and you're not going to ever accomplish anything. So long as you have those 2 groups of people playing nice, whether that's an internal city department or its own independent like it is now, if they're not playing nice in the sandbox, you're not going to get anything out of it. You're just not.
I agree. I would caution against looking to divest the land that's in the industrial park because it's specific to the type of companies we can bring in based on previous zoning and such, and shovel readiness, as it were, as opposed to possibly buying small parcels to appease a particular business. And then you run into a lot of the issues, as you well know, of people putting up a fuss about stuff not in my backyard and not this close. So the land has a value, and yes, it's we're getting the right people in. We got to continue to get the right people in. We've got the right staff. But yeah, I would just caution, just as a community, just watch how quickly we get rid of the land, as it were, in the industrial park, unless it's the right companies coming in. We can't put retail down there. It's not going to work, obviously. It's
Yeah,
not
it's not
zoned.
No, yeah, in my mind,
Or a
the-
hotel or whatever.
you know, in my mind, we were keeping it and would use it in the exact same way that we've been using it.
Right.
When new businesses come in, we have this available, they can purchase it from us. We don't no longer give it away, but
Yeah,
it's still an asset that could continue to serve its current purpose.
For sure.
For me, who's the one that asked y'all around this table because I need direction, right? There's a push and pull. Really, the question is simple. Do we want to still continue to financially incentivize business to come here? That's the one question.
And so I know I'm saying, and it's been said, right, we're calling people ourselves. We don't have to say, hey, come to us. But still, there is, we don't want to give the impression that we're not trying to have businesses come here. Don't want to take away that conversation off the table. Don't want to take the thought of the small businesses not being able to come establish themselves in a small town feel. So definitely, I think we still need to look at that option.
Well, let me rephrase the question.
Okay, rephrase it for me
Let me
then.
rephrase the question. Do we want to continue to financially incentivize companies in addition to what the normal city incentive offerings are? That's the question, because and I'll give you the example of Accutronic, for example. Just, let's say, independent of the EDC. Accutronic, we sold the land for a little over $1 million, land and closing, $1 million. And so once Accutronic gets its C of O, certificate of occupancy, they will have a refund of that $1 million. So they've gotten the land for free. And then $1 million in site and engineering work that they're getting reimbursed right now as they submit invoices. If the EDC did not exist and Accutronic came and said, we want to purchase this piece of property, and we're going to invest $20 million, and I'm going to bring 30 high-paying jobs, 50 high-paying jobs, actually, 50 high-paying jobs that pay more than, $70,000 a year. City, what can you do for me? Independent of the EDC, Accutronic proved that they had the liquid to buy the property. They bought the first one in the industrial park. So independent of the EDC, the city could still enter into a reimbursement agreement that says, okay, Accutronic, we will reimburse you up to $5 million, $2 million. I'll just use the $2 million that the EDC has given, and we will reimburse you in this manner and method. The city has the tools today. What you lose, I'll go with that first, what you lose by doing that is the economic term of opportunity cost. What are we giving away by giving Accutronic that incentive? Versus the EDC can do it with essentially no strings attached. Not no strings attached, but minimal strings attached.
Yeah, because it's different.
And so
pocket.
the question really is, one that should be placed to the residents is, do you want us to continue to financially incentivize businesses to come here outside of the normal packet? And what I hear, and if you read and listen, folks are like, no more, don't bring any more, we're
Right.
done. There's
Right.
too much here already, don't incentivize anymore. You guys are the ones that get elected.
Right.
And you got to face those folks at HEB and everywhere else when they tell you that. Me too. but y'all gotta hear it more.
So I hear those, but then also, I mean, it was said earlier, right? Like, we don't want it, but we don't have. And I know with some of the businesses that come here, especially we're able to establish a working relationship with the schools. You know, not only do they provide jobs for citizens here, but they have internships and different programs to allow kids to be able to start a career, right?
I guess what I'm saying is you can do that independent of the EDC.
Right, okay. Well,
We've chosen not to do that as a city. We've chosen not to do those things, and I don't need to reiterate what our relationship with the school was like.
right,
Well, we've chosen not to do those things. And so I don't want us to get hung up on what we're doing today and that be the reason. I want everybody to be very clear on what we can or can't do. I'm agnostic whether the EDC continues in its current role, with taxing ability. What I want, though, if it's going to continue in that, is super clear and concise direction. What are we marching toward? You know, there are some years that we spend a lot of money on marketing and, you know, we get a little bit here, we get a little bit there. There are other years we don't spend any money on marketing. There are some years we're very successful with companies. There are other years, and many years go by before we are. I would like this council to, and the board to really have a good direction for us. The short-term goal that we did, because we did one-year goals, we didn't do 5-year goals because we knew this conversation was coming. Hit the industrial park hard. Make the industrial park appearance be more appealing. We put in some signage, we put in, you know, hit that really hard. We've done that. That hasn't yielded additional yet, but we're planting seeds for the future. The question becomes, how long is this council willing to wait for those seeds to bear fruit? How long are the residents willing to wait for it to bear fruit? That's one segment. The next segment is, do we want to continue to financially incentivize? That's an obvious question. And if the answer to both of those is yes, then we need to get really hardcore going with the school, higher education, whatever direction this council tells us to go. We really got to hit that hard so that we can have some tangible results. Mm-hmm. If the answer is no, because we want to be more community focused, then the answer is, okay, let's get an exit plan together and see what those numbers look like. Once we lay the exit plan together, if the numbers are not appealing, because after it all settles out, we really only have an extra, you know, $100,000. While it's $100,000, is that worth the heartache and everything else that we would go through? So that's what I'm asking you guys here today is what is it that the council wants to continue to do or not continue to do, because that's going to give staff a path forward. That lets me know how much more do we put in effort. Dory went to Korea recently, and she went pretty much on somebody else's nickel, really, because we went to pay a visit to L&S Electric. If we're going to continue with the EDC and we're going to continue to do that type of outreach, then I need to make sure that in the budget plan we have travel to Korea, we have travel to other countries that are in the industrial park today for expansion opportunities.
right. And I get it's hard to predict that with the different companies that might come in. You never know, right? So that is going to be a tough decision for us to think about and to make, to be quite honest.
So
Personally, I'm sorry, John.
go ahead.
Personally, just speaking for me, I would like to see a transition plan for us to move toward moving in under the city, but working the numbers to see where we stand. Exactly like you said. So when you said if the answer is no, we don't want to continue on the same path, and that's kind of what I'm saying, I would like for us to say, let's transition to the new way, a new way, but let's find the numbers and see what that's going to entail. Does that make sense?
And just a time frame on it, right?
So my perspective on the questions you asked, I think that I'm always going to look at incentives with an ROI attached, and I'm always going to look at it with in what time frame does the city make back this money. And so if you give someone $1 million, then how long does it take the city to recoup $1 million in property taxes and so on? And when we're talking about a retail establishment, we're usually looking at single-digit number of years payback, and we're offering them money that's going to come in the form of tax abatement. You know, property tax, sales tax, you can keep this much percentage of it over this length of time, and then that'll add up to X, right? So I would fully anticipate we would continue to have conversations like that. If you had some, trillion-dollar company come and say, I want to put in a manufacturing plant, and we're going to hire, 7,000 people at $100,000 a year, we wouldn't have enough money anywhere in our city budget to handle the incentives for that, right? It would be hundreds of millions of dollars. And so it would have to come from tax abatement, right? So I think that the conversation about incentives is fundamentally about tax abatement, not about, look at this shiny $1 million I can offer you if you agree to come here. I mean, we're not like buying them anymore, which was more or less what we were trying to do in the past.
And I think that's still some of the confusion is if EDC goes away, we're not going to be able to do those things
Absolutely
anymore.
can do those things. Yeah.
Right.
Yes, absolutely, they can continue. They come with an opportunity cost like everything else.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Councilmember Lowe, you have something? No. Oh, okay. Amen. All right.
I agree.
Councilmember Plunkett?
You're saying
Oh.
there are still mechanisms in place, minus the EDC. It's how.
Pull it to, it's on, just got to pull it to you, get it a
It's
little
how we-
closer.
It's how we market it. Again, obviously manufacturing, we said that's more jobs, it's more income that people can spend in the community. So it's not sales tax revenue. So obviously we're always searching for a balance of just the right places, just the right type of businesses. To her question, yeah, do we still want to incentivize that? Something we really need to look close at because we know that other communities are. And those corporations are seeing whoever's offering the sweetest deal is going to work for them. If we drop certain incentives, not that we're going to drop them, but we can do them through other mechanisms, that makes a big difference. I was on committees with large corporations, and some of the questions that we looked at in deciding where we added another location or moved a headquarters, as it were, we looked at those same questions that we're grappling with now. And really, we almost always went with the lowest bidder, who offered us the most bang for our dollars. So going back to having all the tools in the toolbox, I think incentives is one incredibly important tool that we don't want to miss out on for those mid-sized companies, as he said, the $1 trillion companies. It's probably not something we can deal with, even if we wanted to.
And just so you know, because we've talked to companies for like 5 minutes straight and kind of got away from what we're looking at right here in front, which is things about the citizens. And so whatever realistic numbers that you can give us on that in comparison to what could be, just say if we were to take that route, I know you have something here, but just like, all right, parking garage for sure in this location or this location, this is what it's going to cost. These are the things it's going to bring versus waiting on someone to come in, to use football terms. They look at players when they were scouting, which has a tremendous upturn or upbeat on them. What kind of player are you going to get, right? And so if it's someone that's going to give us a tremendous upside on what we can do, let's really start leaning towards that. Because at the end of it, though, I know we want to incentivize different businesses and companies to come here for potential jobs for the citizens. But an unhappy community doesn't care about what comes in. And we got to make sure that at some point in time, those people, like the citizens, have something that keeps them happy. And if we have that option and availability to provide a little something, then let's look at that. So.
And on that note, Mayor, I'd just like to say that I think it's a win-win because with giving to our citizens, our community, they are winning, but we're also going to win too on the return of investment, as Mayor Pro Tem says, because there is the potential for quite a bit of return on investment for all the ideas we've got up here. So it's just not a spend, it's also a return. So I think we need to make sure we keep that in mind too.
Yeah, it's different options, right? And it may not necessarily be on the grand scheme as that, but it's a little something. Parking garage gives us more room and availability for people to come and shop at the local stores. The option of the swimming pool, of course, there'd be a whole new world of swimming events that can be opened up, but like just the arena, that really can open up options and things for what we can do here in downtown. And as far as having multiple events and you know, it can be a monthly thing or whatnot, and who knows how much how big that'll grow. So yeah, it's a tough one, but we got to look at some. You got
I agree
some?
with you, because those things, those speak to quality of life, which is what we
Right.
all want too.
Right.
I mean, we could just focus on all industry, and then we'll be surrounded by industry.
And that's what I'm saying, and we won't be too happy around here. I can promise you that. I say we because that puts me in the mix with them, right? But like seriously, like there's some stuff we do really need to do for the community that we have not been able to do. I personally think the EDC has an opportunity to be able to do that, and we really need to look at those options as well.
What are the like the deadlines for like getting all these ideas together? When are we going to get a hard deadline to kind of hammer these things out?
So I would work my way back from an election time period. If there's a May election that's called, then you guys are probably getting an ordinance passed in February, which means information is due to you guys in December, essentially, which is, 6 weeks, 6 weeks away. Yeah.
Pretty tight.
Other than that, we work our way back from November, and then we run into elections, and we run into different ideas, and we run into a state of ideas, and so, there's all kinds of parameters, right?
I was about to say that, I'm going to say this and then I'm going to say something else with it, but by doing it in November, we end up having to pay for that election, which we wouldn't have had to have otherwise done. That'll cost us like $20,000. But there's likely to be an opportunity for us to collaborate on an election on the alcohol topic with the county, so that we call an election, all the municipalities in the county all at the same time. And it could be that November is the right time to do that as well, or maybe they want to do it in May. I don't, not participated in any of those explicit conversations, but that's going to drive an election date as well. And if it's not a May uniform election date where we're having city elections, then we would be paying something to participate in it anyway. So anyway, there's just things that could help decide that for us.
Yeah, I would say that's a little, it's a tiny amount of money. I wouldn't want to rush a decision to try to make a May election to
Right.
save 20 grand or
Right.
40 grand, whatever it is. Because this is going to be a long-term decision that we're going to be making that's going to affect how money gets spent in the city in perpetuity. So I don't want to. So you tell us how long it takes you to get this together, and then I'll tell you when we should have the election. How's that?
Yeah, all right. How did that work? Councilmember Foster?
I was going back to your original two options that you laid out. The first one is continuing on as is with the current incentivizing structure we've been doing, or switch to a community focus and transition. Are those like the two main branches we're talking about right this minute? Are there any more options I'm missing?
So there's three options really: amateur sports, other, and then elimination of the tax.
So continuing on as is means BEDC continues. Amateur sports means BEDC continues. Or transition, or community and transition. So three main, okay, incentivizing, BEDC stays, amateur sports, BED stays.
Well, I would follow community investment
community investment, BEDC stays, or community investment, either BEDC stays or BEDC transitions.
So there's 3 scenarios.
Okay.
1, BEDC stays as is, and/or has additional focus on affordable housing, those things it can afford within the limited budget that it has. So that's that. 2, BEDC goes away, and we start to program any remaining funds, blank, 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 that could help fund some of these projects up on the board. BEDC doesn't have enough money in and of itself to borrow for any one of these projects. So it stays or it goes. And if it stays, what are we doing? And if it goes, what's the exit plan?
So if we get to one decision today, it would either be, I mean, we're not deciding everything today.
No,
I don't
what
think we're doing it. I don't even think we're getting to the one decision today. We're giving direction on,
Right.
on things to bring back.
Yeah.
That's the decision we're making.
What I
Keep
heard-
saying direction,
Yes, what I've heard
please.
today is bring back what an exit plan would look like. And let's look at that. And if it's not worth it, when we look at the numbers, then we keep BEDC as is with a modified focus toward community, whatever that
Gotcha.
looks like.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because I really don't think we can make any kind of decisions until we see what
No, yeah.
it looks like, right?
Yes,
So I
that's-
think that's a great plan to go forward with on your timeline, Sylvia, and whenever y'all can make that happen.
Okay, I just want to be clear that there is a possibility that BED stays and we switch the focus to community. Okay,
Yes.
that was what I was unclear, that both of those could happen, meaning that can happen in the one step. Okay.
Does anyone else have any comments, questions, fill-ins? All right.
I just want to clarify, just because we're working on an exit plan does not mean we're going to exit.
Exactly. We need to know how we need to move. All right, so
But
that
the
way we're not
plan we-
moving blindly.
And the plan we are not exploring is continuing the same incentives and BED stays. That sounds like we are not continuing that.
Correct.
plan. Okay, so we're looking, got it.
So the animal's going to change no matter what, because we're not going to continue on the same path right today.
Right.
Yeah.
But we've already largely stopped providing any new incentives of that kind where we're paying someone to come here. And the most recent request that came to us that was similar to that, we turned them down and they said, okay, fine, we'll buy it anyway, and then they came. And so that's just, we're just
That
in a
goes to
different-
show that, hey,
Yeah.
we ain't got to say pick me, right?
Exactly, we're just in a different place now. That's-
Yeah, sometimes you just got to see what they talking
Well,
about.
we did road construction participation where the developer was saying, I can't do it, I may not come.
Yeah.
Showed up. And showed up. All right. So,
Okay,
Commissioner.
direction to staff. Bring back an exit plan that we can dissect to determine if it's even a viable plan, right? And then after that, we'll have any further discussions of how we move forward, one way or the other. Okay.
okay. All right. I think that's it. John? We have a motion to a second.
The city council meeting.
Yes, the city council. Yeah. Okay,
Motion to adjourn the BEDC meeting?
okay.
Second.
Okay. BDC.
Motion to adjourn the EDC meeting.
I have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
We stand adjourned.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll see y'all in 40 minutes.